Welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. This is the top 10 tips, recommendations, hacks, suggestions, whatever you want to call them. Don't forget, like, subscribe. Thank you again for all the great support. It's been huge. Trying something new this week. Instead of putting up the retro games or things that could be distracting, this is simply what's on tap here. And I know a lot of people like to share or know what other people have on tap. Got my American IPA with the Imperial A44 yeast, which we brewed them back to back. And the American IPA with the Evergarden, which is a white yeast or black yeast, however you want to say it. Apricot cider, Beastly Belge from Brew Firm, French toast brown ale, roasted pumpkin ale, red velvet stout, which is actually getting really good since that red velvet's kind of blended in really well now, and the Sacred Saison. Beastly Belge is actually almost gone. We've about blown through that one. And French toast brown ale, I'm pretty sure I'm on the last little bit of that too. Pumpkin ale, I'm getting close. It is what it is. Okay, without further ado, let's get into this. First two are going to be super easy. Number one, bowls. You go, bowls? When you're getting your grains, this is for all grain brewers. When you're getting your grains ready the day before, you've probably seen this. I love these things. Just stainless steel bowls, little rubber bottoms. I scoop, I measure, I put it on my scale, I get everything good, and I leave it out for that night for the next morning for when I'm going to brew. They make plastic sets. I'll leave links down below, but you probably either already have something like this, or you can find something like it. It's not hard. The great thing about them too is the interlocking ones. They take up less space, and you know you're going to use them for home. I mean, coleslaw, my wife uses one of those over there for popcorn. You need containers anyways. And before I was using pots, and I mean, they're just big. They're all over the place. I didn't need anything like that. Number two, small containers for hops. Little ramekins, plastic, are great. They don't break, they're easy. Most of your hop additions are not going to be that big. I used to use glass ones, which I still prefer when I'm doing my brewing salts, just because I can kind of scrape and crush the, I think it's calcium carbonate or calcium chloride. The one that gets all bumpy and little bump. I hate it. It drives me nuts. I have to smash it up and get it nice and powdered before I dump it in. Number three, and this one's going to be controversial, but overall the majority have nothing negative against it unless you're doing long-term freezing, but freezing your grains and using CO2. I know everybody's going, what in the hell is he talking about? A lot of brewers, home brewers, especially with grains, have had a bug issue at one time or another and went, oh my God, this is out of control. What do I do? Okay, first of all, when you buy your grains, there is a chance that it will come with eggs or bugs or dead bugs according to the FDA. And your hops, you're eating amphits, you're drinking amphits. It is what it is, it's in there. Just try to, my goal is I don't want to see them. I don't want to know they're in there. And I want to look through my grains and make sure they're as clean as possible. So I'm not into eating and drinking bugs, so that's my way to avoid them. What I do is I take the bags of grains, whether it's a 55-pound bag, a small bag, and I break them down into freezer bags. I put a paper towel in each one, and I freeze them for 48 hours. That way everything is going to be frozen and hopefully dead. I know somebody out there will put a comment and go, hey, bugs can live through, okay, whatever. Roaches could probably live through the nuclear war, but hey, that just is what it is. So I do that. After 48 hours, I take it back out and I let it sit for about 48 hours just to get up to room temperature. Then I take them and I dump them in either the small containers or the big dog food type containers that I have all my base malts in. And I put a little CO2 over the top so I know there's no oxygen, because my assumption is bugs need oxygen too. I have not had bugs in years after that one, and I don't know where they came from, but they spread like wildfire, and they love your base malts, which just killed me. I mean, and they make a little web, and yeah, they're like a type of moth, just killed me. Number four, when you create your first brew, and I mean creating your first brew from what kind of malts you're going to use, what kind of hops, do a smash. I know you're going, oh, that's boring. Okay, throw a little crystal in there, I don't care. But do a smash. I learned so much from doing single malt, single hop. I learned a lot about the hops, I learned a lot about the malts, and the hops, I started getting flavors and smells that I didn't expect because I was only using that hop and I didn't have to figure out which hop was giving me that. It was awesome. I even made like a lemon lime beer one time that just had pale malt, but I used enough of a certain hop that I got that lemon and lime from that hop, and it was amazing. So with creating your own recipes, simple, easy, copy other people's recipes to a degree. I do this when I cook. If I want to make something I've never made before, I will go out, and what you'll do is you'll use, hey, I want to make a Dunkelweizen. Go and find a bunch of Dunkelweizens. Find what recipes appeal to you by, the flavors. This one's dark and chocolatey, this one's a little lighter, this one's got a hint of rye in it. That may not be part of the rest of the style, but hey, it may have a little bit. Find the recipes that appeal to you, get a copy of all of them, and then kind of blend them into the one you want. You need to understand a little bit of what you're doing, but a little tweak here and there to make it your own is not a big deal. Substituting hops for hops you prefer, substituting a grain that maybe you don't have and you have a different grain that's very similar. All that information and resources is out there on the internet. But cheat. Look at other people's recipes for that style so you can get a better understanding, because you may find one and say, hey, it's got over 50% wheat every time I look at it. Why? Well, you go look at the style guide and it requires more than half wheat. Okay, now I get it. That's to stay within style. So it's up to you. Number 6, this goes with creating your own recipes. Understand your malts. You don't have to be an expert at any means. There are so many people out there who think they are that are not, and there's so many people who think they're beginners that are really much more advanced. It doesn't matter where you fall. You don't have to be an expert at it. Just, take steps, whether it's baby steps, strides, and then take a couple steps back, a stride forward, I don't know. But understanding the malts, understand what it's going to add to the style, add to the flavor, understand the malts. It helps so much. Number 7, keeping with the grains, number 7, specialty grains. They can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Adding too much of anything could be a problem, but adding the right amounts could really make the brew shine and stand out the way you wanted it to stand out. A great example is if you don't like coffee, you probably should stay away from roasted malts. The darker roasted malts in large quantities can actually add an astringent or unpleasant bitter taste that is not appealing to most people, if not anyone. So that's something to be aware of. Think about the malts, look up resources, find out and understand how these specialty malts can benefit, and start small, don't go nuts, learn from experience. Number 8, document, 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 document. You will never be able to repeat that exact same brew if you don't document. And yes, document what you're going to do, but things don't always go as expected. Write down what happened so that way you can get everything exactly. You went a little over on your boil, you went a little over on your mash, the temperature were a little higher. Document. Keep in mind, grains and malts are plants. They're never going to be identical, and you may not even get them from the same supplier next time, so they're definitely probably not going to be identical. Keep everything else as identical as possible if you want to be able to repeat that brew. Number 9, never leave a lid on a brew pot when you're trying to get it to boil. Trust me, do it once, you'll never do it again. Luckily, I haven't done it, but I've had enough boil over issues. I've learned my lessons on other things. You not only want to avoid the boil over, you want the DMS from the malts to escape, and unless you're going for cabbage. If you want your beer to taste like cabbage, you got a big pot, small batch, leave the lid on. It'll be fine. I hope you like cabbage, but that's just what they say, and I haven't tested that one to dismiss it or not as if it's a myth, but not something I'm looking to try. Leave the lid off, it's safer, it'll take a little longer to come to boil. Now if you're standing there and you're just trying to get it to boil and it's not quite there, once it gets close, just take the lid off, don't risk it. I mean, I get that, but don't risk it. Number 10, this one's big. I'm kind of using a cheat sheet because it's big. This is more about adding flavors to your beer, and this is of course week 8 if I didn't mention that before for the top 10 tips. Peppercorns. Yes, peppercorns. Tellicherry or Malabar, however you want to call them. First, they come from the same plant, but Tellicherry is 4.25 millimeters or larger. And this is why I'm telling you, you put pepper in your brews, which I like pepper in certain types of brews, 4.25 millimeter or larger, it's less spicy, but it has more aroma. So if you're looking for aroma, you want Tellicherry, which is the larger peppercorn. Same peppercorn, just larger. If you're shooting for, something with a very peppery flavor and a bite, then you want to go for Malabar. I wish I knew this when I first started brewing with peppers and smashing peppers up, but you want to go for Malabar. Malabar is smaller than 4.25 millimeter, same pepper plant. And this also would include even white peppercorns, which are basically the same plant. They're usually red ones. Peppercorns, which are the white ones, they just still have that little skin on them. And pink peppercorns, which from my understanding are actually not peppercorns. They come from a different plant. I believe it's the closest tasting one is the rose plant in Madagascar. So there's 4 different types of plants out there that are similar to peppercorns, but you want peppercorns. So keep in mind, the summary there is, if you want the pepper aroma, go for Tellicherry, which is 4.25 millimeter or bigger. If you want the peppery bite, the peppery flavor, which is something I usually prefer, then you want Malabar, which is smaller than 4.25. And don't get me wrong, this stuff's been sitting in the air for a while, sitting out. I've had Malabar smell amazing compared to Tellicherry. Yeah, I mean, just like hops, you're letting them air out, you're probably gonna lose some of that aroma. It just is what it is. And they're all gonna have some aroma. Thank you again for joining us here at Bitter Reality Brewing. Don't forget, like, subscribe. Thank you again for all the sharing. It's been huge. Definitely appreciate it. Thank you again.